What is going on, everybody? This is Sukaba, and the Old Council has reconvened once again for another part 2 of your draft review for Season 13. I'm joined by 4 of the oldest and wisest, and maybe good at Pokemon, members of the server. Introduce yourselves.
It's me. I'm James. I'm here, and I already opened my drink, so we're going to see if I can get a good pop sound out of it. Ready?
Yeah,
how was that?
That was good.
It's pretty good.
All right.
All right, who's next? Who else is here?
I'll dive in. Count me in. Goose here. I do have a drink. I poured some white wine that apparently is from 2021. Haven't tried it ever. It's probably going to be terrible. I'll let you know halfway through the vid if I am coherent enough to do so. Happy to be here.
If it's closed, it's good. If it was open, get it the heck out of there.
Closed.
I'm the Jordan. This is the late night hour. I'm taking a supportive role. I'm excited to just vibe with y'all and talk Pokemon.
Yeah.
And I am Purple Rain, and I'm drinking a hard cider.
Very nice. Yeah, I do have a Heineken myself. I'm also a little sick, so I apologize in advance for my voice being a little raspy. I'm going to try to not talk and make your eardrums bleed too much this video. But we've got a lot of teams to talk about, and I believe we're starting with the
How many?
Diglett division. I don't even know which division it is, honestly. But we're starting with Heaven's team. JDB, what's going on here?
Poppin made these division names, and they're funny.
Yeah, they're
I
fun.
get
I
it.
like it.
They're fun.
I don't
but
mind.
also impossible to actually remember as a
I
result.
tried color coding the doc so that I can appreciate color, even though the names are all so similar.
Yeah. Alrighty, so we're talking about RegiLabs here first. I really like the top 3 Mons plus Fortress for big numbers and things to do right away, right? We got Kilowattrel 125 speed, Haxorus 147 attack, Delphox 114 is pretty good for a special attacker in this format. Stantler gets pretty good with an Eviolite. Fortress 140 defense and steel typing in only 1 weakness in a world with mostly offensive Pokemon. I think there's a lot to like here in those top Mons. The bottom kinda is not as appealing to me, right? I think Haxorus is going to be a ground type more than Palisand is. I just can't believe in Wigglytuff. I swear I gave it an honest shot again. I'm like, maybe it's good now. Is it good? What is it? It doesn't get any good moves, guys. Its stats are still trash. It can't get any KOs, and with those awful defensive stats, 140 HP just doesn't matter.
My favorite part of the olds vids is waiting for the point where we get to the teams where Wigglytuff is on them to hear James just dunk on him every time.
It's never mattered in any VBL league, and it gets drafted every single season. What are you people doing?
Somebody wants a
delicious
cheap
fairy
fairy.
thing.
This is the time. This is the Wigglypuff time.
I
think
would
this
love
team
to
is
be wrong,
all
'cause
over
I
the place,
like-
but also awesome. That's
Yeah,
my main attribution.
I like Wigglytuff, and of course we're spending lots of time talking about it, but it's just not a good Pokemon.
Rite of
guys.
passage.
So I do kind of not like that they're the Heaven's biggest offensive threat in Haxorus shares a weakness with its biggest support Mon in Kilowattrel. So just leading ice moves is going to be super reliable into this team basically the whole season. Which is kind of a bummer, right? Put a Scarf on something to get faster than Kilowattrel, and you can one-shot it with a Terra Ice almost all the time because it's pretty frail. And Haxorus is going to take 80%, or if it's got Stab already, if you don't have to Terra into it or something like that, it's going to die a lot of the time as well, which is kind of a bummer. But you got the Delphox there to provide some fire type backup there, right? It's not really you're not really going to bring Intimidate into this team because you've got a good competitive Mon and also Wigglytuff. Even though you would kind of like to, right? Haxorus wants to, or is asking to be intimidated.
His team can handle physical offense pretty well, but can it handle special attackers?
I mean, there's not that many of them, but also, Hitmonchan has terrible HP, but is 110 Spadef, which is nice. Quillfish has like pretty decent typing, but bad actual stats.
If you've got Ice Beam, I feel like you're solid here. And then it's Fortress. I love some of the Inspire picks in the back, like the Flapple. It's a really fun mon, but it can't get to do its thing when you never catch a team without ice coverage. So I think it needs to be dropped for something that has a distinct threat. The team has a lot of cool things. I feel that it could maybe force teams in different directions by changing some of the secondary picks, but Fortress is awesome, and I think the team's pretty cool.
Yeah. I think that this team is just gonna beat a lot of people down with fast Tailwind and then Haxorus there. Like, I think that's just going to be a big problem for a lot of teams. Yeah. But I think this is one of the teams that's hurt most by the state of the board because, like you were saying before, with Ice moves being a huge problem, Ice is the type that has the most increase, right, on this board compared to previous boards percentage-wise.
Yeah, definitely.
And so that's going to end up being big of an issue, and it doesn't help that the fire type on this team is Delphox, which is good offensively into Ice types, but is frail. And so, like, it's not going to be able to tank Ice moves well.
Yeah.
Purple so drop in the science.
Yeah, and what is Heaven going to be able to do for a team that is well prepared for Kilowattrel plus offensive Pokemon that is good that week lead?
Well,
right?
I
what
think,
other
stuff
does it go on?
I think there's enough offensive variety here where I don't think any team can have one solid answer to Tailwind plus Attacker, because it's not just the Haxorus you have to worry about. Like, I think when you draft Kilowattrel first, you probably want to round out your team with middling speed Pokemon that have a lot of power. And I see some of those here, right? Like the Haxorus is nice. The Delphox, I think, is going to be used as an offensive weapon a lot on this team. I like that you can maybe even get something out of like the Flapple or Quillfish that you normally otherwise wouldn't be able to because it's hard to get them to go first. But I think with the Kilowattrel, a surprise banded Quillfish clicking water moves could be good some weeks. And sometimes Flapple is going to hit its moves 80% of the time under Tailwind, right? So I think there's enough offense where Heaven has the variety there, but your concerns are valid, and Ice types are going to be an issue.
Like I hit it. Gravity, which is fun.
All right.
So you can always hustle Flap and then Gravity.
Yeah, where are we thinking for this one? I'm a little mixed. I'm kind of thinking B tier.
Yeah, I think this is a solid B tier team for me that is, I think, going to be a pretty good one to like judge other teams against.
Yeah, seems like a pretty nice team with some flaws. But what team doesn't have its flaws on this board, right?
True.
All right. Cool. All right, moving
on.
Give
me more trash. Let's go. Low tiers.
The Phoenix Suns.
Ooh.
I think it's actually...
I need more of you. It's like Barry White out here.
It's like...
This is a gift. Yeah. Who's talking to this team? Is it Goose?
Goose.
It is me.
Go ahead. Take it away.
I have a bunch of notes, and I feel like you fellows did for the last one, I need to specify that Poppin did a wife-based draft, so I'm pretty sure he had an entire list of Pokemon that was banned that he could not pick, and then there was a list of ones that he could pick from. That being said, I think this team is actually pretty good, given that pretty severe restriction, mostly picking like cute and adorable Pokemon. So there's kind of a lot to like here. More to like than dislike, I think. Meowstic F is a great support piece. You have a ton of options with Fake Out. It's I think top 11 fastest, but like you're not going to be running into the top 10 every week. So Meowstic F is probably going to have the fastest Fake Out a lot of the time. It has a lot of support options between both screens. You can activate Rain Dance for Kingdra, which I imagine that's why Kingdra's here, both as a water type, but also as a sweeper in rain. It also has access to Trick Room, more gravity stuff. I feel like I've seen more gravity on low tier teams than the high tier teams, but which can make Executor's hypnosis 100% accurate. So like you could get Trick Room up and then start hypnosising things without worrying about missing, which is really annoying to deal with because Goggles isn't going to save you. There's a lot of like offensive pieces on this team that are pretty threatening as well. A lot of special attackers, even though that average stat doesn't really look like it. Kingdra's 95 special attack is a lot better with Sniper. If you can get... is there a Dragon Cheer mon on this team other than Executor?
Any mon could be a Dragon type. Yay,
that's true. I just meant like who can give it to Kingdra other than...
Yeah, but you want to give it to Kingdra, not take it from them.
I mean,
Executor. Ampharos might have it. Yeah, Executor has it, but like Kingdra is
yeah.
pretty slow. So it's going to be tough like giving it to it after Kingdra's already moved, you know what I mean? But that's still an option that you have. Grand Bull is a great fairy piece that has Intimidate and also is offensive. There's not really a lot of offensive fairy types available. Like Fezandipitis isn't really that offensive. Tinkaton has Gigaton Hammer, but that's not really like it's not a fairy move, so it doesn't really count. So I think it was already said, but Grand Bull is the strongest fairy type, I think, physically on the board, so that's pretty nice to have access to as well. There's a lot going on here. Lapras Freeze Dry, Flareon has great attack if you can actually get it into position, which I don't think we've really ever seen happen very effectively, but in low tier, who knows? It's possible. There's a lot going on, so if anyone else wants to step in, but I have more notes that I can refer back to, but I don't want to talk the whole time.
I really believe in the Grand Bull hype. Poppin and Daddy are going to do great things with this guy.
Yeah, I'm into it as well. This team has 6 Pokemon with an attacking stat above 110, which is nice in a frailer and generally less offensive board like this low tier board kind of is shaping up to be.
And when Flareon gets to move, it gets another 50% a lot of the time. True. Same with Heracross sometimes.
Yeah, true. Yeah, it's weird to see. There's no fighting over Eviolite, but Flame Orb is in. Oh, well, I guess Flareon actually can't use Toxic Orb, so it's not even. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the Toxic Orb, Flame Orb, 1 Eviolite user. Yeah, you got not a lot of item competition overall, which is nice on this team.
I think looking at this draft kind of forces me to think about the coach, which you're not supposed to do, and we're supposed to think about a team in vacuum. But like, I know, like the team looks ridiculous on a surface level, but like when you trust Poppin, which we probably all do at this point, I think he's gonna pull a lot of surprise stuff. Like Kingdra, we want the sniper memes to happen, but like it's got every single move in the entire game. Like, and with stats, like some of these mons, if you Terra them, all of their problems just kind of go away and they become a huge menace. Like the stats don't lie, and so I think when Poppin uses it, I can't not think about that. This team's gonna be very, very difficult to prep against because it's just in all directions at once.
Yeah, I do think there's a bit of a speed tiering issue potentially. You know,
except speed.
Yeah, like there's not really anything fast here. You do have a Tailwind setter in the Braviary, but Meowstic also is not like... Meowstic's not a mon to me that screams like, I'm going to be fast and I'm going to set speed control for the rest of the team. It's not like it has like an Icy Wind. It probably has Thunder Wave.
It has just T-Wave, and Trick Room and Fake Out.
Yeah.
That's how it has to use it still.
And screens. It can
perfect. Oh, it's going to be good. Meowstic's good. I'm just saying it doesn't really it's not primary speed control here. And I think a lot of times Poppin is going to get outsped. It might not matter because we do have some bulk and we do have some power and we do have a Trick Room mode that's very good. But in certain matchups where that mode gets denied for Poppin, they may run into some issues getting outsped and getting killed. But overall, I think this is pretty solid.
Yeah, turn 1 is the scariest turn for Poppin, where he's got to set some kind of screen or Trick Room or T-Wave, or he's got to get something going because he's a sitting duck on turn 1 until he is able to take control of the game.
Right.
Frisk Fake Out's a pretty good way to guarantee it, though. He's had a lot of success with it in the past, which I know we're not supposed to rate the coach, but like that combo is pretty useful in finding out where the cloak is.
Plus, they can both set Trick Room too.
Yeah.
Actually, does Meowstic have Kit? It doesn't say on the dock.
Yes, it does.
It has Trick Room, yeah.
Okay.
I think he's really gonna have to lean onto this Intimidate on Granbull though. Like it's coming every week and probably basically every day, every game, because those defensive stats are not good. I mean, 75 is pretty average in terms of this, like people's teams as we're looking at them, but there's lots of them that are right at 75 because those averages are on most teams getting brought down by some 1-pointers, and there aren't really any of those on this team. So like you kind of have to take all of those stats for real, and
I see.
It's just not like, it's lots of low numbers on the physical side specifically, and this is like every team has a good physical attacker or two that Poppin's just gonna have to deal with. Like who's gonna do 80% with a physical coverage move to me this week?
And we're going to have to calibrate as we see more of these low-tier teams, because I think some of these teams are even squishier than this, so we'll see.
Could be. I mean, yes, there are, but but also some of those teams have multiple 1-point baby mons that are dragging those numbers down.
Point.
True.
Does this team get the benefit of the doubt? Can we call it a really good team, like, in a vacuum?
Yeah, I think it's pretty good overall.
If it gets Trick Room up,
like
I think it does really well.
That's a big if, though, sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, also, I feel like more so this season, I feel like most teams have a good Trick Room mode. Like, a lot of these mons that are on this low tier board happen to be slower. Like, I feel like most teams we look at have mons in like that 40 to 50 range that could compete with this Trick Room mode. So I don't think this is like an auto win if he gets Trick Room.
No, not an auto win, but I think it will be better than most in Trick Room.
Yeah,
that's
every
a
team
consequence
has
of the
like...
low tier cutoff, right? Where a lot of slow mons, they're held back by being slow, and Trick Room can only be up so often, so they never get tiered above a 10 or 11, which is our cutoff. So all of these Trick Room mons are right around the top of this format. It's really gonna be exciting seeing if Trick Room is more of a factor, or if teams are just gonna play through Trick Room. Like Poppins should be like, I'll get outsped and we'll deal with it because I've got the bulk.
Right.
I think the team's gonna maybe end up in B or A for me, depending on what we see next.
Yeah,
that's kind of where I'm thinking as well.
I think I like it a little better than Heaven's Team maybe, but I don't know how much.
I do as well. I'm gonna put it in A for now, but it could move down depending on what else we see.
I'm definitely putting it in A. I mean, it has clear weaknesses with the turn one, but I just think it has a good spread of offensive threats in both fast and slow that I don't think a lot of other teams can do.
Mm-hmm.
I will say it is a team full of like Pokemon too. Like there's no like, you know, like just like very much. These are a cartoony animal design with some like basic elementally type theming. Like these are Pokemon. Like, not every Pokemon looks like, oh, that's definitely a Pokemon, as opposed to any other sort of cartoony animal media property.
So
and
we're meeting tomorrow.
A lot of misses over the years. Like, there's no Klefki here.
I think we need to meet tomorrow for a Pokemon review.
You got
on
your
all
title
these
right
teams.
there.
All right, let's move on. We've got Purple's team. Take it away, my friend. What do you got going on here?
Yeah, so when I looked at the board, I was looking for types that weren't really prevalent, and I noticed that ghost types weren't prevalent. And so I thought, and I noticed Gothorita was on the board, and I think trapping is really good when there aren't many ways to get out of it. So I decided to first pick Gothorita, and then I thought if I have a reliable fake out, I should get a Pokemon that can scale well, and Blaziken can scale well. And also it's a fighting type. To build off that, I thought ghost types pair well with fighting types offensively. Good coverage just to generally hit everything. So, and Poltegeist offers a bunch of other tools as well. And it can set up, it can be supportive, it can do lots of things. And then I wanted my Parasong user in Dugong. Persian is a fast, bulky dark type, and it also has fake out to play into a Perish Trap mode or just as a fast fake out that can switch in when I want to switch Gothorita out. And then I picked up Squawkabilly as a Tailwind setter and as a nuke with Final Gambit. Golem and Bastiodon, or Golem's a Trick Room Abuser that I quite like, and Bastiodon's Iron Defense Body Press Spoop makes sense, obviously, in that it is a redirection. And then I've got some lower tiers, which just can do some things some weeks, but are lower tiers. This team, I think, is mainly centered around the two offensive threats in Blaziken and Poltegeist, with being able to reliably keep the other team from switching with Gotharita, and then an occasional Perish Trap mode that I think will be annoying to beat.
You have 3 good fake out mons on a board where there's no fake out.
Most teams just have 1, yeah.
Yeah.
If any.
If any. Yeah, that's a good point.
So I think there's something to be said about this core that you have. I feel like a lot of people, when they are designing a team, they focus on like either a Fairy Dragon Steel core or like a Fire Water Grass core. We see it all the time where people's like first 3 picks are Fire Water Grass. They just try to get it out of the way right away. But I feel like the most slept on core is the Psychic Fighting Ghost Dark core, which is a 4 mon core that doesn't really get talked about a lot, but they do cover each other incredibly well. And I think this is a team that has 4 really good Pokemon in those positions. So the Gotharita, the Blaziken, the Poltegeist, and the Persian. I do think this team relies heavily offensively on the Blaziken and the Poltegeist. And I think a lot of times, some of these mons like Dugong, Persian, Gotharita are going to be feeling a little more passive than you want them to be. But I like the fact that they enable those top 2 attackers really well. And I think if you can get those 2 set up and ready to go, you're going to have a lot of success.
This team screams in energy. It's a crazy energy. It's like, look over here, look over here. Persian fakes you out, and then Blaziken or Poltegeist kills you. Or Golem explodes on you. It's very much trying to misdirect and take control of a turn or 2 so it can take control of the game. It's a very explosive team. The 3 fake outs, I mean, you're going to deal with a cloak every week. And also, like, even the puzzle, the type chart here is playing games with you here. Like, if you remove Bastiodon, if we don't respect Bastiodon, we know exactly where to hit the team. Like, if we don't respect Persian's pulling a lot of weight for this team. So I feel like there's some misdirection in how we're supposed to hit this team, but I fear that some of our coaches are gonna like find and hammer this team. They're gonna find the way through the fake out and other disruption. So it's just gonna be a very volatile team. I kind of believe in Purple as a coach. Well, I definitely do. So, but not considering that, it just seems scary. It seems the vibes are fun, but scary to play as.
Yeah, I mean, the type chart's bad, right? And I know that now, and that might prove to be a pretty serious problem, especially with Ice, like we've talked about with Heaven's team. My team does not deal with Ice types super well outside of Dugong, really. And Covert Cloak is a big problem as well for the team. So I know I'll have to find ways around those 2 things.
I actually think Ice specifically is not that much of a problem, just because the mons that you want to be targeting with Ice is like your Squawk ability that is going to be like scarfed and just final gambiting something anyway, or whatever. Your Golem that's going to be exploding and has sturdy anyway, so it can do 2, or it can do it gets to do 2 attacks, or it's exploding or whatever. And your Go-Goat, which if you're prepping for Go-Goat, you're wasting your time. Right. So I take your point in a larger sense of like there are definitely ways that you can dial in on this team and target it, but I wouldn't put too much like defensive prep into what Ice typer they're bringing.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm inclined to believe, but it's scary. I believe that this team could go 7-0 or 0-7, but I'm inclined to believe. A tier for me.
Yeah, I like Protect as a setup move for Blaziken on a team that wants to be Perish, Song, and Shadow tagging anyway. Because that's just a way for you to stall some time and then, take a KO with Blaziken on the next turn, because now it's 1,000 base speed.
Too many of Purple's mons are designed to survive. I don't think we're going to lean too hard on the Perish Trap here.
Sorry, one more thing. I don't know if I mentioned this. I think in the entire division, there are 3 Pokemon that can escape trapping without Shed Shell. That would be Mold Breaker, Haxorus.
Terraghost is a problem, though.
Terraghost for sure. And I don't have an offensive Dark type, but, Poltergeist can still hit them.
Yeah, I think it's really hard for me to tier this team. I'm kind of with Jordan. I feel like it's gonna be good, but sometimes it's just gonna run into a wall. I feel like where it's like, if the opponent has a really good answer for something that you're trying to do, it may be really hard to break. So I don't know. It's like I want to put it in like the same range as the others. I think like high B, low A.
I think that's where I'm putting it because this team is like this team could easily just sweep a team like 4-0 instantly, and then some games it'll struggle to do that depending on like the opponent's prep. You know what I mean? It seems like a very volatile team. I think it'll be a fun team.
Oh, it's gonna.
Which
be
I think is. Seriously,
yeah.
Yeah, this team is gonna be really fun to just kind of like mess around with and dish out huge damage.
Yeah, it's probably gonna show up on the weekly heat once or twice.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Something cool's gonna happen.
My one prediction that I have for this team, because I'm with a lot of you that I don't know how well it'll do. I think I'll go to a lot of game 3s because I think a lot of game 1 will be like determining where the cloak is, where how I have to position against the specific threats they brought for my offensive threats, and then I'll end up in a lot of game 3 situations where it'll come down to who will adjust better.
Interesting.
Subscribe now to Purple Rain VGC Draft.
Please do.
All right.
Watch the hype live.
So we're gonna move on to the Dublin Dondozos. Ryan O'Giggs, our token Irishman in the league. We love him, and we've got some interesting wheel picks here as combos in the first 2 rounds. Started off with the Primeape and the Cryogonal. Rounded out round 2 and 3 with 3 and 4 with the Mesprit and Ursaring. Now, this is a really interesting team to me because those first 4 picks are really scary, right? You're like, how on earth are you supposed to prep for both of those modes at the same time? I think Ursaring was a really great value on this board at 14. I think it's going to be an amazing Trick Room sweeper in this format. It has a 500 base stack total, and you can run Eviolite on it if you want. But you don't have to. You can just run a Flame Orb like it was designed to do and just go to town clicking Facade on things. You have 2 Levitators, which invites a lot of ground types for Ursaring to become. I think we're going to see a lot of Terra Ground Earthquake, especially since a lot of teams in this format are weak to ground. Now, what worries me is a little bit just that we have these 2 threatening modes, but the rest of the team doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like, I think this team struggles to operate outside of those 2 modes, kinda, and like it's going to be in this weird place where if you have an answer for one of those 2 modes, or if the plan goes awire, like these mods in the back, I'm not entirely sure what their role is. Like you have Shiftry, but you don't have a Tailwind setter for Shiftry. And you could say, yeah, well, you could self-set Tailwind, which is true, but Shiftry's not a great Tailwind setter, in my opinion. It's like a bad defensive type. It is kind of frail and wants to be taking advantage of that Tailwind on turn 1 with the Wind Rider. So having to commit a Terra just to get off a Tailwind and then be at half health anyway for the next turn, I don't know. I'm not a big believer. But what do you guys think? Am I harping too much on this end? Is this top just good enough?
Well, I'll totally agree with you on the Shiftry. Like, it's being asked to do too much here. It's being asked to be the Fake Out and the Tailwind and the Tailwind Abuse. If you could get Amon to support Shiftry, I think it would really, really appreciate it. I think Terra Grass is going to be a major struggle for the team because if we don't believe in some of the back half, like these mons hit particular dimensions, but they're not designed to take hits in all dimensions, and they're a lot of monotypes. They hit in a lot of dimensions where they can get neutral damage, but like there's like the fire water grass in the back here. If we don't respect it, if we don't think they can get a lot done, then the team is really missing a lot of the variety you would typically expect. If Ryan gets a lot out of these mons, and we inevitably underrate certain mons, and some teams make them shine, I mean, Luxstrike maybe will add that, but I just don't believe in like most of these mods, at least as offensive pieces or as scary offensive pieces. So it's like, can a team ignore the type chart and win?
Yeah, when you're talking about not believing in the back half of the draft, but the back half of the draft is the last 7 of 11 picks, that maybe doesn't say great things about the team.
I don't know. I'm inclined to believe that Primate just like freaking sweeps everything. You know what I mean? Like,
does
we
it?
saw what this thing did in a high tier format.
But
I feel like
think
this.
That's the thing, though. Like when I don't believe in this Primate mode as a primary option on low tier. I feel like it works in high tier because you have so much else to worry about that when you just lead Primate plus the crit move, you just get swept because you were worried about the other 20-point mons that were on the board, right? Like when this is the team, is this Primate option plus some trick room and interesting stuff in the back. I don't know if it has the same potency. Maybe I'm wrong.
I also
What
feel
about
like
Worry Seed? Because this team without its abilities.
Someone pick up Wheezing in this division.
I just feel like Primate needs to also be defiant a lot because this team is like so physically offensive.
Yeah.
That you need to be able to, if the team is running Intimidate, you need Defiant. Because you can't even run, not Covert Cloak, you can't run Clear Amulet on Ursaring most of the time because you want it to be Guts. So you really need to be able to counter Intimidate in some way, which means you have lost the Primate Cryogonal mode, which means your main mode is then Mesprit Ursaring. But like I said, if they have Intimidate, then that's going to neuter the Ursaring still. So it's awkward. You just have like a good Primate and an okay Cryogonal with speed control because you wanted to run Icy Wind, I think, a lot of the time in that situation.
I'm deeply scared for this team. I believe Ryan can do it. I believe we don't know what is going to win this low tier format. For right now, it sits in C tier for me, but who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm prepared to put it in C tier as well, but I don't know. Yeah, I mean, there's some stuff going on. I mean, yeah, like 108 is your highest special attacker, and it's Samurott that is never going to run special moves.
Yeah. And your other one is Mesprit, which wants to be running supportive moves a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Wait, why would Samurott?
We got to put respect on Mesprit's name.
It is.
Why would Samurott never run special moves? Does it not have?
Well, I don't know that it actually never would, but like
just clicking Hydro Pump and no
yeah,
other
tab.
Its special moves just aren't that appealing, right? Because on the physical side, you just have better coverage options. You can Terra into more useful things if you're going to be physical, and if you're special, you have Hydro Pump.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it at C tier. I think it's a little weaker than the other teams we looked at, but certainly will and probably will take a lot of names if you're unprepared for whatever's cooking in Ryan's brain this season.
Trio Cryogonal goes crazy.
Ooh, let's do it.
Arena Trap 'em Earthquake.
Who needs Disquake?
Yeah, we got Blizzard Quake.
Blizzard Quake.
Both suck so hard.
I believe. Come on, no, please.
This is low tier, Jordan. It's good now. Trust.
Yeah, I got to adjust.
All right. Let's move on to Bohm. Goose, take it away.
Oh God, notes. Oh boy, this team. When I was looking at not only the whole division, but I kind of like peeked at all the teams. Probably has one of the most potent fast mode special attackers I think of any team in the either conference. I mean, you got Salazzle, Tatsugiri, who's like arguably not that fast, but Salazzle, Espeon, and Galvantia all have like, I know Galvantia has like 97 special attack, but like when you're clicking Compound-Eyes Thunder most of the time, I think it makes up for it. Most teams don't really have the amount of special attackers that Bohm has, which, and more often than not, a lot of teams also have physically oriented teams, both offensively and defensively, other than Poppin. Poppin was kind of an exception. So I think this team is going to take names just by kind of swinging out of the gate with offensive special moves. I heard, ooh, that sounded nice. That was beautiful. Anyway, also, Jordan, you're going to hate me for saying this. Salazzle has the second fastest Encore on the board, and you can just protect into a fake out and then do Evan did to me last season and just encore me into it and then cry. So Salazzle not only is offensive, but also has supportive pieces that can be really nice, along with like Will-O-Wisp and Corrosion Toxic if you're going to be in a stall fest, which I don't really think this team wants to be in, but it has the option. Espeon has like the 3rd highest special attack stat on the board, and I know you can just Terra Dark in front of it, and Doxbun is not really much of a deterrent to that, but I feel like low kicks is a pretty good deterrent when it can just first impression or bug move you and kill you. I don't know. There's a lot that I like about this team. It's very offensive, more so physically or especially I think than physically. But like Serena and low kicks can also deal some pretty good physical damage. And I guess maybe Cloth ? But I don't really have a lot of faith in the crab, unfortunately, as adorable as it is. My one gripe with the team is that this team has like no semblance of a trick room mode at all, and is gonna seriously struggle when running into them, which is gonna happen. So I don't know, take it away.
I'm a little less worried about the trick room mode for a couple reasons. You have Queenly Majesty, which would stop fake out into trick room, which I think is one way a lot of teams would want to get up trick room against you. Espeon, well, not. I mean, Espeon can imprison trick room, right? It has imprison.
Yes.
So that's an option, and I think in a lower tier format, it actually will come a good amount of the time, which it wouldn't in a higher tier format. And you have Skarmory, which can like iron defense through a lot of trick room modes, because a lot of trick room is physically offensive, because everything is physically offensive on this team. I think it's bulky enough to maybe survive trick room, and then you don't lose too much, and then you can come out the other side and win, I think. But I think the main thing is just stop trick room from getting set up, which I think this team can do enough of the time to where it's quite strong.
I agree.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I think if I'm prepping against this team, my goal is to go first, and I'm probably not doing that unless I'm flipping the speeds, because this is probably one of the fastest teams I've seen in this format. We have a 117, which is really high, but also like most other teams we've seen have like one Mon that's like 110, 120, like 115, and then everything else is like 90, 80. Here we've got 3 Mons in that 100 plus tier, plus a couple 90s. Like if this team is, if you're trying to match the speed here, I think you're going to be disappointed a lot of the time. But you know, it's possible that you could just out tailwind it too, because if you want tailwind, if you're Bohm, you have to bring Skarmory to get it, which I think Skarmory is great in this format as a steel type that can body press, that can roost, that can set tailwind. But sometimes you want to lead Salazzle and attacker. Sometimes you want to lead Galvantula and attacker. Like, I don't think Skarmory always has a place in the 4. So it's possible that you can outspeed that way. But I like the balance of speed and power here. And I'm a little concerned about the slow mode. Yeah, I don't know.
Is the team not always Salazzle plus attacker, Galvantula plus attacker? I mean, the team is very fast. Galvantula has a lot of speed control in one Mon. But I see Serena. This is the time for Serena. It's going to be a great Pokemon, a great pick. It can take a hit on both sides. And I think Dunsparce can take a hit on both sides. And I can't say the same thing about the other 9 Pokemon. This team is going to really fear all of the attacks. It seems really, really frail and very volatile, and I hope that they can win in the first few turns before Trick Room or Screens or something goes up. Pretty scary. It feels like a scary team to run, but it could be really, really fun too.
Yeah, Samax last season had Skarmory as the primary Tailwind setter as well, and Samax's season was not great last season, but I do think he did a pretty good job of using Skarmory and finding the times to like really dig in and like get that tailwind up and then do something useful. So now Samax also had a bulkier team considerably than this team is, so could kind of had the time to find those opportunities. But it's definitely possible.
Maybe you don't need it. If doesn't Galvantula get string shot?
Yep.
Isn't that basically
and
Tailwind?
Electroweb. Yeah.
Like at home?
It is pretty much. Yeah.
So maybe
Armor
we're harping
is
too much on that point.
situationally
Maybe
amazing, but I'd say that about a lot of the mons. And I really want mons that I can bring every single week, and I feel like that's Serena, end of list. Maybe Salazzle.
I think you can have fast Tailwind with Skarmory if you just run Covert Cloak Weak Armor and they fake you out.
I see what you mean though, Jordan. I feel like these top two are locks, and everything else is very situational, like in the way that you use it. And we're gonna see a lot of variety. But I think it's wide enough where you'll be able to find a game plan that can win out of these options most weeks.
I think a lot of teams are probably going to have something they could put a choice scarf on to really not have to worry about the fact that Bohm's average speed is higher than most other teams.
Mm-hmm.
Like something that's going to be able to take 2 hits and kill something, and then kill something the next turn. You know, those are around.
All right, I think I'm about ready to tier this one. What do we think? I'm a little mixed here. I like it.
Yeah, I think it's like a low B tier team, maybe the top of C. I think it's fine. Like overall, I think these teams have been pretty clustered in terms of relative power level.
This team's low A for me. I love this team. I think this team's going places.
Yeah, I really like this team as well. I'm less worried about the bulk than all of you. It's in because I think a lot of the physical defense is good enough that I'm less scared. Yeah. So I'm going to put it in
always root
A.
for Bohm to win, but it's probably going to be last for me.
All right. Well, we got 3 more teams in this division. Goose, your good buddy Sora's back with us. And what is he cooking this season?
Yeah.
He's back.
Sora.
Welcome back. Happy to have you.
Thank you very much.
I was talking to him throughout the draft a little bit. I didn't really influence his decisions at all. I was kind of just like hearing his thoughts out and like where his brain was at. And I think like a lot of us, we realized that fairy types were very limited. He did want Tinkaton like I did. Just a happy coincidence, was not planned. But Tinkaton ended up getting picked first. So therefore the next relevant fairy type that was, I think, kind of around like a top tier point value at 18 was Fezandipity, which I think was a great pick. It has a lot of options. You can run it both physically or specially. It looks physically oriented on its stat pool, but it has nasty plot, so it can easily fix that. It's a mon that's extremely difficult to remove because of its bulk, and especially in this format, I think it could be very difficult to remove just in general, having access to like Roost and stuff, while it poisons you with Toxic Change by just doing random like Dazzling Gleams and stuff. This team has a lot going on. It's the highest offensive outputting team, I think, in this conference for both physical and special combined. So, and I know Sora loves his physical teams, as do I, but I think he's gonna have a lot of fun with this team. There's a lot of just like big numbers between like Raichu Lola's speed stack and Electroweb to enable like a Sharpness Samurott or even a Honchkrow. Pyroar can boost its special attack with Hyper Voice and start clicking buttons like Canner did a few seasons ago. Torterra can Shell Smash and just like nuke things, or it doesn't even have to Shell Smash. It could just be in Trick Room and click Earthquake next to Honchkrow, while Honchkrow just Sucker Punch, Moxie, chains everything to death. The Trick Room mode is not amazing, but I think it can work. I'm not really worried about Trick Room for this team like I am for a couple other teams that we've seen so far. And like Diplin especially, I think can tank its way through Trick Room while also loving to be in Trick Room. There's not like a ton of like super cool synergy that's like standing out to me, other than like Torterra Earthquake next to Honchkrow, but or I guess like Sucker Punch Honchkrow into Justified Lucario, but that probably deals like a chunk of damage you don't want to be taking. I don't know. Yeah, there's not like a lot of clear synergy, but I think there's just like a lot of good mons on this team, which, can make it tough to plan around because a lot of these mons could very easily come each week.
It's always an underrated strategy in this game that we played so much and try so much heat. Just hit things. It seems like a pretty good strategy, and this team's going to follow it to success a lot of the time. The team is a lot of cool attackers that I think I really believe in a low-tier format. I don't get how they come together, but they're probably going to hit a lot of things very hard, and I think that's very promising.
Yeah.
I think of all the adjustments, like all the like specific things that you kind of have to change looking at this board of low tier Pokemon, I think spending 14 points on Raichu, on Alolan Raichu, has got to be the one that I just can't wrap my head around. Like, it's a Pokemon with no ability. It's got mediocre stats. It's got not very good typing. Like, what? I just can't see justifying that much of a budget on Alolan Raichu. I get it. Like, generally, I get it, right? We're adjusting our expectations. You can still kind of see the, the relative comparisons between Pokemon, right? The Pokemon that are good on this board are higher, stuff like that. But I am just really struggling to wrap my head around what Raichu is going to do for that many points.
Yeah, I think a lot of times you'd rather have base Raichu just for Lightning Rod, especially when you have like a Samurott and a Honchkrow that you might want to steal those electric type attacks away from. Like that, I think they were, how much was Raichu? 14 as well? I think, or maybe 15.
I'm not sure. I don't have the tier list up.
But Raichu's definitely a miss here.
Raichu is 15.
Yeah. I mean, I think in Sora's video, they said that they were like, originally had a plan for like a Pincurchin, like electric surge mode, which would have been cool. Like, at least
that's spending good points after bad, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think that's why ultimately they shot away from it. But I don't know. I mean, I do kind of agree that this is a team with a lot of good Mons with good offensive outputs, but kind of lacks that overall identity where it's like, this is how this team operates. These are how these Mons interact with each other generally. And here's the different ways you could variate that. I think this is going to require a lot of creativity each week where we may see totally different stuff going on rather than like the same archetype, which isn't a bad thing, but it makes it hard to pilot in a lot of ways. So I think Sora can have success with this team because we have good numbers and good Pokemon, but it may be challenging to come up with a good build a lot of the time.
I don't know if it, I know this is what you're saying, but I don't know if it like can thrive in either mode though. Like, I think if I want a team that's flexible, I want a team that can actually do well in both modes.
Yeah.
And I think it can be seen in the first two picks. Like Fezandipiti, what does it want to do? It wants to sit, like, slow down the game, toxic chain everything, and win eventually because it's going to survive and everything is going to get poisoned. And Raichu does not fit that game plan at all. It wants to fake something out and help set up the Pokemon around it to then sweep, or to itself do some good damage and then go out, and get rid of a key threat for the Pokemon next to it, maybe. It just seems like that's kind of the story of this team to me, is like, it does it like Diplin wants to do that slow game plan, but Torterra wants to set up a lot of the time, I feel like, very quickly and then try to sweep. And I don't know if it can do either well enough to justify like having that flexibility. It wants to index more into one of them and then bring the other as a surprise factor. So I don't know. That's how I would like to build this team, and I don't know if it can do that right now.
Yeah. So how do we think this stacks up with the other teams we looked at today? Is this a B, C, A, low A? Like, what are we thinking? What's the vibe?
I think it's very flexible. I think it's A.
It's a high C for me.
Yeah, I'm also much lower on it.
I think I like it better than Ryan's team, maybe?
Yeah, I like it better than Ryan's team.
I don't know if I like it better than...
I mean, Bohm's team is what I've got next.
We'll mention it once and not overharp on it. This bug weakness is completely indefensible. It's a very cool team, but it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Good luck in the season.
I want to harp on it a little bit, though. Like, not a lot.
The first impressions.
But it's also, there are more bug types, right? Because it's a low tier board. Right. Like, that's actually a concern. Like, I wouldn't really care at all on a normal board, but on a low tier board, I kind of care that it has a bug weakness.
Terra is a valuable resource.
All right. Well, how about Canner's team? Jordan, I think you wanted to take the lead on this one. We got the Empoleon. Is it good in low tier?
Yeah, it'll be good. I think the overall team is the harder part to analyze. I think a lot of these mods are individually good, but I'm trying to understand the overall vibe of the team. I think it's a solid idea to go for the fire, water, grass core. These mons do cover each other. To go for mons that all independently take hits in different dimensions, but this team is starting to over-index at this point in like mid-spear bulky attackers, and I'm really happy that they're embracing some extremes with the fast aggressive Dodrio and then the Duosian Trick Room and aggressive in Trick Room, that we have the redirection. I think the team could embrace the extremes harder, that I think a lot of these mons can be replaced for just some new tool, like Probopass is the second steel type, Levani's the second grass type. I guess you can have two flying types, but these mons could go away if we added like an electrode. This team becomes a lot more aggressive, and people have to respect the electrode sometimes. If this team had another Trick Room attacker, a more extreme Trick Room attacker, or a more extreme supportive mon besides Torracat, like this team's really going to struggle with like clear amulets and covert cloaks. So we need to push the opponent in different ways, and I feel like this team is pushing too hard in certain ways, though a lot of the things are individually good, and this team is not far away from being fantastic.
Yeah, we've talked in the past about like, and when I say we, I mean me, about like teams that are like on the like low tier board. We've talked about like teams that are full of like 3rd to 6th picks, and how like what would be 3rd to 6th on like a non-low tier board, right? A lot of like second best choices and reasonable role players that come some amount of the time. This team feels more to me like a team full of like 5th to 8th picks. It's like that idea, but shifted down one more. So it's like it's a lot of like reasonable things, right? Like, sure, you've got Empoleon and Chestnut and Torracat. That makes sense. Dodrio is a cheap tailwind setter with a good attack stat. It's a tailwind setter that can do a second thing. Floatzel is your cheap weather abuser or whatever that you take in round 7 because there's plenty of water types and you can push that decision down longer. And this is just kind of a team of all decisions that would have been pushed down just a little further on another board.
Yeah. I'm very worried for this team in Trick Room, I think, because Probopass, like, I don't know, I guess it can function in Trick Room to delay the opposing Pokemon if it doesn't have a ground type move or a fighting type move or something. But then you have Duosian and Trapinch, which would both want Eviolate, I feel like. Or at least maybe you could run Sash with Trapinch, but then you're not running it on another mon that you would want it, like Dodrio. And the only Trick Room setter or stopper is Duosian. So it's just a little tough in the slow mode. Like, I actually don't mind this team's fast mode that much because you have Dodrio and then a bunch of mid-speed attackers, which is fine. But I don't know how this team survives the Trick Room that well, or does well in it either.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Like, you have the Duosian, which I think is a great value on this board, but like there's not much there to abuse it. I think the idea is that the Empoleon is a little easier to enable under Trick Room, but as we've seen, a lot of these teams have mons that outspeed Empoleon under Trick Room. I don't think 60 is premier for Trick Room in this low tier format. So it does seem a little awkward. I guess the Duosian can operate itself under Trick Room as an attacker, although the Psychic Stab is not great. So I could definitely see your concern with the struggle. I also think I like the value of the Elekid for 4 points as a follow me mon, but I'm not really seeing exactly what wants to set up next to it or like take advantage of that redirection from it necessarily. Like, I don't know. I also wish maybe there was like a Disquake mode with this Gliscor, like if you had like a Rotom form or something. Like, I don't know. It just feels like this team's missing some things.
I feel like this team has to mind the the draft board a little bit from free agents. I feel like there's a lot of good stuff in this team, and I think he has to do some detailing.
Well, where's the?
It's not there yet.
I'm a little less worried about the no ability to set up with Elekid. Like, you have a lot of Sword Stance Mons available to you, and like the real one I think is Gliscor. That would happen a lot of time, and maybe Dodrio. Although most of the time Dodrio doesn't need to do that; it can just like blow something up. But if it does, you can set up a Sword Stance next to it, and then you have Iron Defense Body Press with Chestnut. So like, I think there is some amount of setup, and maybe just Duosion gets Calm Mind, right?
I would have to assume it does, yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, I feel like it should.
Like, with an Eviolite, you can Calm Mind something. Like, I think there's stuff here to do next to an Elekid.
Yeah. And for 4 points, it's fine. It's good.
Yeah, but
He needs to be doing more.
Yeah.
Some of these pieces, these low tier pieces.
14 points for Floatzel.
Away a lot. Yeah.
Without rage.
What is Floatzel doing?
I feel like Floatzel can go. You could trade that for something.
Well, you already have your 19 pointer is a water type as well.
Yeah.
You know, like
that's what I'm saying. It's
like meant to be like a Cloakmon, like a personal Lola, but you're already gonna see the Covert Cloak and Clear Amulet, so it's gotta go.
I think the Floatzel could be swapped, and those points could be redistributed a little bit. But where are we thinking to rank this one?
I think it's underwhelming, but fine. I think it's like around that like top-ish, middle-ish of C tier, kind of where I've got Sora as well.
I think there's good pieces, but they're hard to enable, and I don't really see the whole vision. So I'm gonna put it at the top of C for me.
It's going low B for me.
I do think I like Sora's team better, but
yeah. All right, moving on to our last team, and this is a good one. We've got Sly, coach of the Waterloo Wattrels. Now this team I really love. So Sly sniped my Rhyperior, which was originally going to be my draft plan. But I love what they did with it. Like they didn't really go for like necessarily like, hey, I have Rhyperior, I'm going to go for like a hard Trick Room team. I like that there's a Sun mode here, and I think the Sun mode is really doing a ton for this team. This team is awesome. We've got the Executor there for Trick Room support for the Rhyperior. We've got Rylu for a fast Prankster Sunny Day, set up that Chlorophyll mode on the Executor. You've got Scovillain to take advantage of Chlorophyll, which is also there for redirection and for moody shenanigans sometimes. We've got Electros there for a nice Disquake option with the Rhyperior. Probably one of the strongest Disquake modes that we'll see in this low tier format between those two Pokemon. I love the Kimiko as the low tier Trick Room setter that also gets Levitate. This is kind of like your discount version, your Walmart version, if you will, of like a Mesprit or an Uxie, which were really high tier Pokemon. So I think instead of going that route,
versions of Cresselia. So.
Yeah, exactly. This is like the Wish.com version of Cresselia.
Yeah.
This might even be Temu Cresselia. We're going real knockoff here. But yeah, I don't know. And this muck too, like I don't know about how to read this muck, but like I feel like it's good.
I love muck.
I love it.
Fantastic.
It's gonna be great.
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
I don't know. I like this team, and it's not just like a slow Trick Room mode that relies on Sun. You've got Scarf Haunter with Icy Wind. You've got a Wug Trio that's fast sometimes. I think Wug Trio is great.
Bulldoze for a lot of this team.
Yeah. So I think this is a really good team. Might even be the best in the division that we've seen so far. What do you guys think?
I agree with
Unbelievably incredible. But Tsukaba, that was a fantastic analysis. Say it with me. Rhyperior.
What?
It's got a pa. It's got a pa sound in there.
You know, you're right.
I was just gonna let that one go.
Sorry.
But...
Listen, I'm notoriously bad at naming things, so I probably butchered like 3 of these Mons names. But thank you.
It doesn't matter. The substance of what you were saying was really excellent. The team is absolutely fantastic. Is incredibly unpredictable, explosive, powerful, bulky. It has a lot. Top tier for me. Easy.
This is my favorite. This is my favorite team. I think. Period of both drafts.
Yeah, Sly did a really good job of spending points on the high tiers and really mining those mid and low tiers for good Pokemon. Like, it doesn't really feel like a team full of 5 and below points, but it mostly, I mean, you know, five Mons are 6 or below, and 6 of them are 8 and below, but it doesn't really feel like it, right? Like, you can
slam the value button on this team.
Yeah, you can clearly see when these Pokemon want to come, right? I mean, Riolu is an 8-point Pokemon that's going to come basically every week, and you're never going to be upset about it, right? Like those are points well spent. Haunter is going to come. I mean, it's 115 special attack, 95 speed. Like that's an offensive threat.
If those
spent 6 points on it, and then you still have Muck and Scoville and a great Disquake mode, and Exeggutor can go fast in the sun or set Trick Room and take advantage of it. Like, yeah, I really like this team as well.
If I was going to nitpick, I think it would be it would be that without Wugtrio, this team, and I don't think Wugtrio is coming often because it's a low point Pokemon and it's not very good. This team is like really slow. Like I know there's Scarf Haunter, but that you're forced to run Scarf, and then if the other team knows you're running Scarf Haunter, they can run a faster Scarf Pokemon potentially, or something, or a Sucker Punch or something, right? Like I think that is a potential problem.
You do have Chlorophyll on 2 Mons.
You do.
You're aiming to make speed irrelevant in this game. I think it's a very valid concern, but like, how much does speed matter against a moody Muck?
Yeah, I mean, I agree.
Coil setup Electros.
I 100% agree. It was a nitpick, right? Like, I love this.
I think you should definitely point that out. That's a very important thing to point out, and I'm just doing I'm a huge fan of this team, and that's the counterpoint.
Yeah, of course. But yeah, I mean, you have coaching too to make the Muck, Muck or Electros, if it runs an Assault Vest or something, even more bulky. Like, I don't know. I just think that it's going to be so hard to get through a lot of these Pokemon. And Rhyperior, of course, you even have redirection, like really good redirection for a low tier format in Scovillin, to help it. I don't know. I think it's really solid. Yeah. The one thing is grass moves. Like, you can't redirect a lot of grass moves coming from grass types.
True. And does this team like Terragrass, or do you like bringing Terragrass into this team? I think you don't mind it, right? Like, it's good into the ground type moves and the electric moves from your top 2 damage dealers. It's good for the Scovillin to dodge that Rage Powder. So I think,
but it's also bad against the Scovillin if it's in Sun, especially, because then it's killing you.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm kind of with you guys. I think this is going to be an S tier for me. I like
Got 3 Levitators. I have 3 Levitators. How could I not put it as a top tier team? Really, come on.
Very well done, Sly. And I believe, my friends, that will conclude the first half of this review. Diglett Division down, 8 more teams to go. We're going to take a break, and we will get back to you guys with another draft review video, probably posted the next day after this one. But signing off, tally ho, my friends. Adios.
We love you very much.
Nonsense, VBL. Love you.